As a final theoretical part, before we finally start with the practical part here, is the introduction to the pranayama, to the basic breathing techniques. And the basics for the yogic breathing are a couple of points. It's first of all, always nose breathing. We always breathe through the nose because it's important to get the oxygen and the prana through our nose, because we have more control by breathing through the nose than by breathing through the mouth. We do also put our chin towards the chest, which facilitates this breathing through the nose by deactivating the ability to opening the mouth when the chin is towards the chest. Additionally, we put the tongue to the roof of our mouth. This is a little signpost for the energy, for the prana, so it knows that it needs to flow upwards. So we put the tongue just at the hard palate with this little concave. When it goes up, this is where we put the tongue pointing upwards, so the energy knows to flow upwards. Lastly, we're doing Uddiyana Bandha in order to have diaphragmatic breathing. Uddiyana Bandha I'm going to explain in a bit more detail in the practical session, but for now we have a little bit of a tension created in our abdominal area, so we slightly suck our abdomen and the navel towards the spine, that we have a little bit of a tension here, a little bit of an activation, so we have the resistance of the diaphragm to move downward and create the suction movement that it does. So before we go to the diaphragmatic breathing, I quickly want to touch upon why we have to breathe through the nose. I already touched upon it just briefly, and for the English-speaking people among you, you probably already heard the insult, "you mouth breather." You call someone a mouth breather when this person is a stupid person. And this is also really what happens when you breathe constantly through your mouth. There's even studies and books written about this, that if you constantly breathe through your mouth, you will create a dull mind. And this happens because our system is not very adapted to breathing through the mouth on a constant basis. There are times where it's important to also be able to breathe through the mouth. That's where we're able to do it. But on a constant basis, it wreaks havoc on our system, because toxins cannot properly eliminate it through the mouth. We're not able to properly humidify the air when we breathe through the mouth. This is where we have the nose to also humidify. And we have just more control, because the nasal passage is just so much smaller than the mouth. So we're able to breathe slower and more controlled through the nose than if you would take big gulps of air through the mouth. It might feel more effective to breathe through the nose to get more oxygen, but actually this is not what's happening. You need to breathe through your nose in order to create and mix a substance that is called nitric oxide, which enables the body to use the oxygen a lot better than without. So this is how we can create a proper oxygen to CO2 ratio. And even though the focus is all about oxygen, CO2 is just as important for the breathing process in order to actually pick up the oxygen from the blood and utilize it. So by overly breathing through the mouth, we will have too much oxygen, too little nitric oxide, and too little CO2 to actually use the oxygen to our advantage. So these are a couple of steps and a couple of points why it's really important to focus on nose breathing and make it a habit. Even ancient cultures have focused a lot on the importance of nose breathing. Ancient cultures have sometimes even stood at the cradle of their babies and their infants to always, when they open their mouth during sleep, to gently close it again, to make them breathe through their nose again, because they already understood the importance of breathing through your nose. Next, we're going to focus on diaphragmatic breathing. Diaphragmatic breathing, in contrast to belly breathing, goes one step further. When we do belly breathing, we breathe into our lower belly as well to make use of the lowest part of our lungs as well. But diaphragmatic breathing goes into all directions, 360 degrees, front, side, and back. And we achieve this by help of our diaphragm. And the diaphragm is this dome-shaped muscle that separates the lungs from the lower parts of the abdomen and the organs that are in there. And by creating this Uddiyana Bandha that we're going to focus on in the practical part as well, we have this little counter pressure from the abdominal wall that then allows the diaphragm to pull downwards, have a little bit of resistance, and with this resistance we can expand into 360 degrees of the torso, and that creates the suction movement to really expand and pull the air all the way in and expand into all directions. In picture 1 you can see the diaphragm, and in 2 you can see how the diaphragm is moving down, and the spine and the chest and everything is completely expanding at the lower part. And in picture 3 you see again the diaphragm going upwards and everything is compressing again. And you can here see the Uddiyana Bandha part. I just depicted it very quickly here so you can see in which area it is. This is the area around the navel that you suck the abdominal wall slightly in and up. It's just a very gentle movement. It's just to have this very slight core activation. And core activation is this deep core, the deep muscle tissues within your core. And this is what gives your core the stability. And this is something that you can also make a habit to practice throughout your day. You can keep this slight activation to give you more stability and enable diaphragmatic breathing. The next part of the practical part is going to be Ujjayi breathing. Ujjayi breathing is the ocean breath. It's this breath that occurs when we constrict the epiglottis, this flap in our throat, so that the air passes a bit with a friction through it. And it's a sound that you make when you want to fog a mirror, these but we do this, of course, with a closed mouth. So it's this kind of sounding like Darth Vader, or this in and out breath, this in and out flowing of the ocean. And this really helps us to elongate our breath and facilitate abdominal breathing. It also increases prana and increases heat within our body and moves it better throughout the body, which is why Ujjayi is such an important breath also for the asana practice, and why it's an important part already in this course, even though it is a pranayama. And it is so important because Ujjayi guides us through our asana practice. It shows us when we went too far and when we have to slow down again. Because when we're not able to smoothly use Ujjayi, that means we have gone too far and need to go one step back in order to have a proper Ujjayi breathing, to burn up all the toxins and really get this prana flowing through our body. The yogic breathing is going to be the major part as well of this first step, because we here use what we've done before. We use the diaphragmatic breathing and the Ujjayi to then breathe into different parts of our body. We breathe into the lower part, into the lower abdomen, using the lowest part of the lungs, then in the middle part, in the chest breathing, the middle part of the lungs, and then the upper part, the clavicular breathing, where the clavicles and the shoulders are, breathing into all the way in the tips of the lungs. And we do this in a yogic breathing rhythm, and it is the rhythm of our heart, because we need to have a rhythm that's suitable for us, for you specifically, and the rhythm of your own life is your heart. And so we use this yogic breathing with the yogic rhythmic breathing by breathing in the rhythm of our heart, and we do this in the 6-3-6-3 way. So we breathe for 6 heartbeats in, hold the breath for 3 heartbeats, breathe out for 6 heartbeats, and then hold for 3 heartbeats. This ratio is what we're trying to hold. If this ratio is too long, you can reduce to 4 and 2. If it's too little, you can also increase the ratio to, for example, 8 and 4. And slowly, it's the aim to build yourself up to higher and higher ratios, or to higher and higher heartbeats, keeping the ratio. So this is the theory of the basic yogic breathing techniques that we're going to focus on now in the following practical aspect. So enjoy your first pranayama class.